Hi divers, and welcome back to another scuba diving accident video. Today we're going to be reacting to rescue diver panicking during training. And in a weird way, I'm kind of looking forward to this video. Not for like obviously someone panicking and whatnot, but just because we're covering rescue dives and rescue training. Because I think the rescue course is one of those things that's just one of the best courses actually out there for making divers better. If you actually have a good course and someone teaching you properly, you become such a better diver, both in confidence in yourself, but also just awareness in the water and how to deal with stress on a dive, which is really important. And one of the aspects with the course is that you should feel stress during the course. And with that, then you know how to manage stress and teach you how to stop, think, and then act so that you know how to respond to any problem in the water accordingly in a safe manner to keep yourself safe. So this might be just one of these situations where the diver in question got a bit too stressed on the course, and that is kind of one of those issues what sometimes happen with instructors, where we misjudge how much stress a student can handle, and it can be one of those fine lines which pushes it into an actual problem, which then has to be resolved by the instructor. So it's always that fine line. You have to kind of make sure it is challenging enough for the students, but also not too much that it's going to overwhelm them and cause them to actually have a real life accident. So we'll see how this goes. Let's jump into the video. Oh, by the way, also we're just going to play the whole video through one time without pausing, and then I'll go back over with a breakdown of all the things we see in the video, and that we can talk over it in more detail. So just try that format out for this time and see if it's good or bad. Let me know what you think down in the comments. And pressing play now. Okay. Trim looks good. Personally, I would have the hands forward. I don't like hands holding onto the weight belt like that. I'd have them in a more active position so you could do stuff, especially on the rescue course where it could be things. So I guess that's the instructor there. Tell them to check the computer. Okay. Oh, they turned the tank valve. Oh, sneaky. So he's going to turn the tank off, so they're going to have an out of air scenario. So misdirection is a big part of the rescue course. There's quite a few times you'll misdirect while you give them a problem, so they don't realise it and then they have to suddenly respond to it. So he keeps having to look at the computer. Not exactly sure what he's signalling there. But he's going to cut out there in 1 second. You get a few breaths before the tank goes off, by the way, before it will cut out completely. And then have an out of air scenario which they have to deal with. Yep, it's out. So it'll probably just cut off there. Can you have his out one? Oh, they're really shallow there, thankfully. That could have been bad if they were deep. That could have been pretty nasty if they were deep. Damn. And is that the video? You followed up the service there. Cool. Okay, let's go over this then. A little bit mixed actually. I actually want to talk about this one. So let's just talk about criteria on the rescue course. Self-rescue is a part of that. So out of air scenarios, knowing how to deal with out of air is a part of the curriculum. In fact, it's actually something you should know how to do before back in the open water course. So it shouldn't be like a, oh God, how do I handle it thing? It should be just kind of compounding on that past knowledge. So in that side of things, there's nothing wrong with that. However, this is where I kind of get a little bit of an ick. I don't like the shutdown in open water. I know it's good to actually do a shutdown so people can actually experience what it's like to have that that tightness suddenly, like getting no air, instead of having to pretend you're out of air, like, hey you're out of air. Because some divers just kind of fluff around on that. They just take the mic and just keep breathing, doing several breaths and whatnot. And it acts as if they've got all the time to then go get the alternate out from the other diver and all this sort of stuff. So I think having an actual shutdown so they can't fluff it and pretend is good. But similarly, it's one of those things where it has a myriad of issues. And I'll just talk about it from first, like the kind of realistic standpoint. I think problems in rescue course should be real. So you don't just like give a problem which would never happen on a dive. The more likely it is to happen on a dive and actual common problems we can actually experience as divers, the better I think the rescue course is going. So in the situation of going out of air, it's very unlikely to actually happen to you on the rescue course for several reasons. Reason number one is that you check your air more frequently on the rescue course. You are checking it all more regularly. You're also checking your buddies and even the instructor and dive masters. Air gauges a lot to make sure everyone else is actually there. You're supervising the dive on that side of things. Every time you have a problem on the dive, you'll be checking your air gauge as well. So you, throughout the whole dives you'll be doing on your rescue course, you'll have a quite good idea of how much air you still have left in your tank, and also just in general. So the idea of having like suddenly you run out of air out of nowhere, not very realistic, because you should be having a close eye on it. On top of that, if you ever did lose a massive amount of gas in one go, you hemorrhage gas massively, it makes a loud noise. Loads of bubbles will be coming out of your tank, your first stage, wherever it's coming from, your regulator second stage. There'll be a lot of gas coming out. It makes a lot of noise. You see lots of bubbles. You know it's coming basically. So you'd start acting beforehand and there'll be a big tell sign. So the fact it just cuts off out of nowhere is a bit weird. Now, the one criteria where this could happen is if there's an overhang. So if you're in a cave dive, cavern dive, if you're in a wreck, there actually is a chance that your tank valve gets hit along the top of something and it ends up closing it essentially from how you're moving along it because it's dragging against it and closing it. Very unlikely for this to happen, but it can happen. It's one of the reasons why we always say to have your tank fully open. Don't do the half turn back, even though this has been in place for a long time now. The reason why you don't do the half turn back is it reduces the chance of this potentially happening and getting it accidentally closing on you. But in this scenario right here, it's just very artificial and fake. There should be no reason that she runs out of air right now in the dive, or he. I can't tell what gender the person is in the video. Because, as I say, there's been, from all those reasons, none of this has been in place. There's no overhang. They're probably checking their gas quite regularly. They're not having any hemorrhaging of gas. So it is a bit unrealistic in that side of things. On the side of things, doing it in open water, I personally do not like doing the shutdowns in open water for the exact reason we saw in the video. If a student forgets what to do, they freak out, they panic, they bolt to the surface, this can potentially be super dangerous. If they are deeper, it could be DCS if the dive's been going on long enough. If in place with lots of boat traffic, they could go straight into a boat on top of the surface. There's a lot of issues with doing it in the open water. Just technically speaking, from how shallow they actually are, this could be strictly seen as confined maybe, but I personally don't like doing the shutdowns in open water. I think there's better ways of doing out of air scenarios in this situation, but realistically speaking, doing this the way they've done it in the video, I don't like doing it. I would say go for 100% if you're doing confined in a swimming pool. Completely fine to do that. The swimming pool session is one of the things in the rescue course where you can go absolutely nuts, throw lots of problems at each other, explain how it all works so they know what to expect on the course. It's the time when you can actually give lots of problems out there, show how it gets snowball, show lots of even crazy stuff what you couldn't even do in the actual open water, and it makes them just feel a lot more confident and have that experience to know what to expect on the course and have their mind kind of thinking about potential problems, what they experience. But when it comes to open water, if they're not expecting a shutdown and having a situation like this hasn't been briefed properly that they could have a shutdown, you can have these panics like this. Strictly speaking, the diver should know how to respond, and the instructor is there, but you've got to be aware that if a student does panic, you are now the one in charge. One of the big things in the rescue course is if you give a problem that's too hard for the student, you then need to be able to rescue that student because you caused a problem which now has turned it into a real rescue. So it's something to always keep in mind if you're an instructor, that you need to be on your toes as well, because if it does be something that overwhelms them, it's going to be on you then to solve the situation. Similarly, that reason, often when you have a dive master with you or a dive master trainee with you assisting on the course, you tell them to only give problems to themselves and not to the student, because if you overwhelm the student, then they might not be competent enough to actually rescue the student, and you're going to have to step in, you have to get this kind of messy situation sorted out. So a lot of times when it comes to having assistance, you often just tell them to give them problems to themselves for the student to fix for them, rather than them give problems to the students. But yeah, let me know, you guys, do you think the instructor was in the wrong here? Do you think he's in the right? I feel like I'm just going to watch it one more time, that little bit again though, because I felt like he kind of froze up when they actually did do it. So I'm going to put this at half speed and we're going to watch back what actually happens here. So let's press play. So they're looking at the computer, so they should shut down in a second. Yep, so they felt it there. So that's when they felt, oh, tightness of the air. And at that point, what you need to do is obviously think, what can I do to get to my nearest air source, which on a scuba dive will be your buddy. The closest buddy to you, that's your nearest air source, and obviously you want to go for that alternate. So if she turns to the instructor right now, the best thing they could actually do right now is actually give the out of air signal really quickly, just so the actual buddy is aware of what the scenario is going on right now. Because if you just turn to your buddy and just like looking at them blankly and then trying to grab something, it might make them freak out, it might make them bolt away from you, might think you're goofing around and try and mess with them. If you give the out of air, they know straight away, oh, you want the alternate, so that way then you can start reaching then towards it. They can start getting that alternate out to pass it to you, so they can assist you on passing the air to you. So even though it might seem like an extra step to put the out of air signal in there, it is a good idea to put the out of air signal. Obviously then at that point, it's just a regular out of air scenario. You receive the octopus or alternate regulator, put it in your mouth, do the Roman handshake, check if everyone's okay, then you go up because you want to end the dive because you're now sharing air for one cylinder. Then once the cylinder, obviously they fully inflate, you orally inflate, and then you can make a plan to get back to the boat or whatnot from there, or shore, however you're diving. But realistically right now what happens here is they see the instructor, they clearly know. They're even like signalling then. If you actually watch the hand movement, it actually is like signaling like a go up situation. That's the wrong signal. You don't need to tell them we should go up. That's the wrong signal. Tell them you're out of the air. Because if someone told me to go up, we're like, okay, I was getting them to confirm it. You have this back and forth, like, okay, let's end the dive then. Depending on how long you've been into the dive or whatnot, if you need to deploy DSMB. So completely the wrong signal to give right there. So they're not really doing anything properly. And they also take the regulator out of the mouth on the free ascent. Don't do that. So if, let's say in that hypothetical, let's say the buddy or instructor is too far away from you, you don't think you can swim to make it to them, and you just go for like a Caesar situation. If you're going to do that, keep the regulator in your mouth, simply put, because if you run out of breath, at least you're protecting your airway. There's no water going to go into your actual lungs that way by accidentally inhaling water. So leave that regulator in. Obviously, you want to be LPI up, deflating, and never hand up, be at the surface in case a boat's there. So it hits your hand first, not your head, and knock you out, obviously, which is bad. But also be looking upwards as well, because they're not even looking upwards on this ascent either. They're just looking straight ahead. So yeah, looking down either as well, the instructor's kind of like, oh God, because he didn't expect them to do this. So he's grabbing onto them, which, strictly speaking, isn't the best situation. Knowing now how shallow they are, not as bad. And also that if you think you can keep them down, not bad. But the fact is they've got no regulator in their mouth right now. So that's the kind of top priority right now with this situation. So trying to keep them down and they have no regulator now is super, super dangerous. So you shouldn't really be grabbing on to try and stop them ascending right now. In that scenario, realistically, it's one of those weird ones where you probably should just let them go to the surface, knowing how close they are actually to it. Because if you try and chase them or whatnot, or things go wrong, you potentially are risking DCS from having a fast descent yourself, and that could get two bent divers. So if they're bolting to the surface, they have a chance of DCS. If you chase after them, you also have a chance of getting DCS. It's one of those ones where you just wait till they get surface and go up slowly yourself afterwards, and then you can sort them out there. But grabbing onto them right now is not a good idea. You should be just literally there. Another thing they could have done, which as soon as they spotted that regulator going out the mouth, is grab their alternate and get that ready to try and pass that to them straight away. Again, it's one of the situations that things happen very, very fast. This is a span of like just a few seconds, but you need to be really on your A game when you're actually doing the rescue course as an instructor, because if problems like this happen, you need to be fast at responding to it. So he's just holding on to them and following them up there, basically. Yeah, it looks like they're grabbing onto the BCD. They are looking up now, thankfully, and at the surface. They can't fully inflate, so hopefully they're going to orally inflate at that point. And then they can just have a conversation at the surface, like what went wrong there. Also just pointing out there, if you look at the instructor's alternate, I don't know if they were holding onto it. I need to have a check on that actually in a second, but their alternate's hanging loose, so it looks like they might have got that ready to pass to them and then just didn't. Just want to go back and check that. I can't see it in their arm. Just dangling down, isn't it? Yeah, but as I say, it's one of those like scuff situations where you did create that problem and you need to be ready to fix it. And obviously, being as shallow as they are, it's hard to fix that because it's like if just a few seconds out of the surface. But it also is one of the things where doing it so shallow can be super risky, by the way, because the pressure difference between 1 atmosphere at the top and 2 is like double amount. Volume changes is half, so the biggest pressure change is actually shallow you are in the water. So this is actually can be super dangerous in the sense of actually DCS as well, in a weird way if you don't actually understand it, just because the biggest pressure changes do happen in the shallows. So very, very careful you have to be. Just keep in mind as well, if that student was holding their breath, this could also be super dangerous as well, because there's a risk of a lung overexpansion injury as well. So there's a whole myriad of things could go wrong with this, and that's kind of why I don't personally love this whole shutdown situation in open water. But yeah, let me know, do you think you should do shutdowns in actual open water, or save it purely just for confined? Do you think the instructor was in the wrong here? Do you think what they did was fine? Curious to think of this one. I think it basically was just a bit messy. I think he wasn't really expecting the student to panic and misjudge the situation personally. but they just didn't respond as well as they should have done really right now. The instructors didn't. They were a bit too lax. I know there's a whole side of things with instructors where you kind of want sometimes to see the student will figure out the problem themselves and fix the issue themselves rather than jumping in to be the person to always save them. Especially on the rescue course, you want to see them have a bit of critical thinking. But obviously, this was one of the times where you probably should have stepped in a bit more because the student was not thinking straight. They were just overwhelmed, they panicked, and they just made a bad decision because they just weren't sure what to do exactly. So, very, very messy. Anyway guys, so I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, please give it a like. It helps me out a ton, but help other divers find this video too. And if you want to see more from myself, Narked Tom, feel free to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell notification icon to get notified when I post my next video. Anyway divers, I hope you have an awesome and safe dives, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.